You'll see more girls kind of dropping off, or more girls getting offended, or more overtly bad dates, even as you get more good dates as well. And that's an indication you may have pushed a little too far with escalating the amount of banter. Hey, welcome back to the Todd V Show. We have some great questions for you today relating to connecting with a girl, building a genuine bond. Because I think for most guys, that's what we're really in-game for. All this other gamey stuff, that's just our way to doing that, right? So let's talk about how to do that and how to get off of all the gamey stuff and into the more genuine, sincere, being a girlfriend, her liking you, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today with a couple great questions. First question we have for today. It's easy to game a feisty/fiery girl, but how do I create comfort with her? All right, that's an interesting and excellent question. So the first thing I will point out is that a lot of guys would disagree with you. They don't think that it is easy to game a feisty/fiery girl. They think it's a lot easier to game a calm, demure girl. And so first thing I will say is that who's easier for you to game has a lot to do with your gaming style and your personality preferences. Some guys like that feisty, fiery, back and forth banter, and they either don't know how to deal with a girl being just like calm and pleasant, or they get bored by that kind of interaction, or whatever. There are other guys that are the other way around. Other guys love it when a girl's just calm and pleasant, they can just talk, and they hate it when they get shit tested, and they hate it when the girl is bantering with them because it makes things more difficult and it unsettles them. Okay, so understand that every guy has their preference, and this just happens to be yours. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. Right? And it is good to understand your preference because it tells you a little bit about yourself. It also tells you a little bit about how you should go about gaming. So if you like girls to be fiery, feisty, well, it makes sense to initiate teasing with them. It makes sense to initiate some banter with them. It makes sense to give them some shit tests, etc. If you like the girls that are more calm, collected, demure, pleasant, well, then it makes sense to be a little bit sort of more smooth and natural and slow in your escalation. It makes sense to set up your dates so you have a long window of time, because those are going to take a while to escalate and build if you are going much more conversational and less gamey, etc. So first, kind of answer this question, which isn't even an answer, but it's a good kind of point of advice for everybody out there, is think about what are your preferences. What type of date do you like? What type of interaction do you like? And then how can you go about getting that type of date or interaction, right? And this is the same in pretty much any area of life, right? What is the outcome you want? How do you set about getting that outcome? But having the outcome in mind and understanding it is a good way to get that outcome. Without a roadmap, you probably won't arrive at your destination. Specifically with these fiery and feisty girls that are mentioned in the question, I want to make an interesting distinction. I would say there's such a thing as good banter and back and forth, and bad banter and back and forth. And good banter and back and forth is good, and bad banter and back and forth is bad. Pretty obviously, right? Based on how I just defined them. But here's what I mean. So if the banter is just fun and interesting, and you're not getting too wrapped up in it and too attached to it, so it's just a nice spice on the conversation, it's probably going to be good. So let's say you're having a pleasant sort of like get to know you normal conversation that's very flat. Adding a little banter into that, especially a little like relatively positive, good-natured banter into that, is almost always going to be a good thing. However, if you have a conversation that is already mostly banter and you heap more banter on top of that, it's unlikely to be a good thing. It's likely that you're going too far into crazy town and you're making the interaction a little too gamey, a little too not real, not genuine. You're making it harder to ground in reality. Also, those banter interactions tend to be very like kind of high energy. And when you start something high energy, you have to keep it high energy because the drop in energy will be perceived as things going worse. It'll be perceived as dislike growing. So you want to be very careful of overdoing it. So there's banter that is qualitatively good, i.e. it's of a good nature, it's lighthearted and positive and contributing in a good way. And there's banter that's bad, but also just strictly the volume, the amount of banter can be too much. Just having too much back and forth, it's too much teasing, too much game in your game can be a problem. And this is a very common sort of intermediate problem, right? Most guys, when they're beginners, the most common sticking point, at least, is that they have trouble making it man to woman. They have trouble bantering, and it tends to be a little too boring, a little too flat. And then they start messing around with teasing a little bit, messing around with being a little bit cocky, funny, that kind of stuff. And they find out it works. And so it's very natural that whatever is working, you do more and more and more of it. And then that leads to a style of game that is all banter and cocky funny. And you dropped the genuineness that you actually had as a beginner. So it'll be a situation where your game gets better, and then much worse all of a sudden. And you may see a drop off in your results, or at least you may see a massive drop off in the consistency of results. You may actually end up still getting more results just because you're getting better overall at various skills. But you'll see more girls kind of dropping off, or more girls getting offended, or more overtly bad dates, even as you get more good dates as well. And that's an indication you may have pushed a little too far with escalating the amount of banter. And specifically, what matters probably the most in terms of banter, and especially in terms of this question related to banter, is what is the frame around the banter? Is the banter a fun, lighthearted thing you guys are doing together? Or is it becoming a combative thing you guys are doing in opposition? A combative thing you guys are doing against each other? Specifically, there's one frame that guys get into that is really bad, and that's what I call the you versus her frame. And that's the frame where you're trying to one-up her, and she's trying to one-up you, and you're trying to one-up her back, etc. And so it's like that classic playground fight where it's like, well, I could beat you up. No, like my brother could beat you up. Well, my dad could beat your brother up. Well, my uncle could beat your dad up. Well, my grandfather is police and he could arrest your uncle. Well, my second cousin's in the general in the military and he could like whatever your whole family, and et cetera, et cetera. All right, you don't want that sort of a thing. Whereas this escalation, this arms race of who can dislike the other person more. It's not like I hate you more. No, I hate you more. No, I hate you more. Because the funny thing about that conversation, it's actually quite fun. And it's actually quite engaging. And it's also actually quite emotionally charged. So there's a lot of good elements to it. And while that's going on, you may think you're doing really well. And it may be really fun and it may be really interesting. But here's the problem. It's very hard to go from that frame to a cooperative frame of getting along. And in order for you to bridge the interaction to another interaction, you're going to have to get that cooperative frame. So if you assume that in-game, at some point you're going to have to handle logistics, well, then you need to get out of that combative frame and into that cooperative frame. So if you imagine that you met a girl literally in your bedroom, somehow, some way, or literally in a place where sex could happen right then and there, and then you end up with that I hate you more, I hate you more, I hate you more kind of thing, and then you just like grabbed her and made out with her and it was like passionate and animal and you had sex, that actually could happen. And there are some scenes in movies that are kind of like that, right? You've seen that scene in movie and then they end up having sex on the desk in the office or whatever. In the real world, while that can happen, it's not the most common, and even if you are going to have sex on the office desk, it's usually from a frame where you've agreed you like each other, at least on some level, and then there's that charge. It's not just a pure, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, we, have sex. What do you actually need? You need some level of agreement, because imagine this, right? You meet a girl and you're at a bar. I hate you more, I hate you more, I hate you more, I hate you more, and you're clearly getting invested, you're clearly both smiling, it's clearly very flirty, and they're like, so what's your number so we can hang out somewhere else? She's like, aha, I win. See, I do hate you more. You like me. Ha ha ha. You lose. Right? And you messed up because you just went against the frame and you lost. Right? And so that's the issue, is that this if the frame becomes I can hate you more than you can hate me and I can banter harder, etc., you create this issue where going back becomes very difficult. So what you want to do as soon as you notice that it's going in that direction, one, hopefully you notice early on and you just add some more normal stuff into the conversation. You normalize the conversation before it gets that far. So again, instead of being banter, it's banter, a little bit of normal, banter, a little bit of normal, banter, a little bit of normal. And then you don't get to that point where it's this arms race. You get to this point where it's just a fun spice on the conversation. However, certain girls are very spicy, or certain girls will initiate that arms race with you because it is fun. If that does happen, if you notice it's already gone too far, what I like to do is what I call the moment of realness. And the moment of realness is where you basically just say, okay, let's have a little period of truce in this war. I know we'll go back to killing each other in a minute, but let's have a minute of truce just to discuss, right? That's essentially metaphorically what you're doing. And so what you do is you kind of acknowledge what's going on. You acknowledge that the banter's fun and you acknowledge that we can do this all day. But then you kind of set up a frame where she can win by not bantering, or she can impress you more by not bantering. And you also sort of like booby trap the next banter so that if she banters more, she loses. Or if she banters more, at least it plays into your hands. So it might be something like this. You'd be like, oh, hey, listen, so you're clever, I'm clever, everybody's clever, and that's wonderful. And I'm sure that after I say this, you're going to have some clever line and you're going to like totally put me on my place and own me. So go ahead, you can get that queued up and you can do that afterwards. But what I do want to say is I love that you're clever. I love clever people. But what I'm actually curious about you is whether you can actually be real. Like, because there are people that can be clever just as like a Band-Aid over, you know, their life or personality. And there are people that are like amazing people who can also be clever. And if you're that second one, I'll be impressed. So you say something like that, and then if you notice that she's been extremely banter, you'll be like, okay, cool. Now go ahead, have your comeback, and then we can have a real discussion. And so by saying have your comeback, now if she has the comeback, she's kind of playing into your hands, etc. So you can kind of booby trap it as well. But the point is, you want to at least just have a moment where you acknowledge, okay, we're bantering and this is fun, but let's have a little bit of realness with the banter. So what you're essentially doing is you're forcibly doing or more overtly doing the thing that should have happened anyway, right? I already mentioned what should have happened is banter, normal, banter, normal. So if you have banter, 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 you need to inject that normal. It's going to be difficult. So what do? You kind of force inject the normal into it, right? Or you give it that frame of normality, and you at the very least give her a way out, because it's likely she's in the same position you are, which is that she's enjoying this. She's getting probably aroused by it tremendously. Girls get very aroused by banter. But the problem is she's aroused by it, but she cannot admit that she likes you because of all the normal reasons girls won't admit it. And then on top of it, because it violates the frame and she doesn't want to give in. She doesn't want to be the low value person. She doesn't want to be like the loser in the frame battle, etc. So you give her an out. By you taking the high ground and being the bigger person first, you give her a way out. But you don't do it in a pathetic way. You don't be like, can we just like stop with the teasing and insults and like be nice to each other? Then you're just like, you're just asking to get whacked over the head with the next comeback. So what you want to do is you want to guide it from a high value place and guide it with some intelligence to what it needs to be. And the good news is, if you do have that feistiness and that banter going on and going back and forth, there's a lot of emotional charge there, and there's a lot of desire for something. There's a lot of desire to keep it, a lot of desire for it to continue. You just have to give her away. You have to basically solve her problem. She's having the same problem you are. The problem is, we're enjoying this, but it's not of a nature that can work. How do you give her a bridge to where she wants to go? And that's what you do by the moment of realness.